get to that spot where he does, in fact, become the head coach if that does happen.
Shefty, when does the first hiring happen? I know there's different rules on when you can interview people, when you can't. All this stuff is depending on if your team is still playing. But when do you think the first hiring takes place? And like the Chicago Bears specifically, I know it's a two-parter. What do you think they do? I hear a lot of people talking about how coveted of a job that is, how a lot of people want that gig. I guess with Chicago, you can answer that one first. What do you think happens there?
Well, first of all, in relation to timing, the league has put guardrails and rules into place to slow this down dramatically. And it used to be for years, that this day came the day after the season, and there was a sprint to go interview candidates and hire them right away. And now the rules are set up.
All right, what's up? What's up? What's up? Didn't know my mic had unmuted itself. It was still looked like it was muted, but it wasn't. But that's all right. Wanted to start just a couple minutes early, let some people get in here. Scheduled it a little bit earlier. Hoping some people would be able to get in here right. Just so I'm not talking to nothing right as I get started. But how you guys doing, man? Of course, a little over 24 hours away from the end of the season in the last game. So, how you guys doing, man? Both with the Colts, everything that's going on, everything that you've heard. How we doing? I see Owen, Paul, Isaiah in the chat. Indiana Sports Connection. Appreciate you guys. Anybody not in the chat, that's okay too. Appreciate anybody for coming and stopping by. I know everybody has their own lives and whatnot. What's going on, man? Yeah, YouTube Premium. Yeah, I've had YouTube Premium since 2019, 2020, something like that. And I mean, if you're on YouTube a lot, it's the investment pays for itself without a doubt. Cold suck, yeah, yeah, they do. Listen, I haven't looked into Malachi Starks. I've heard that name over the past week. I've seen it, seen people talking about him. I'm not at a point where I'm ready to talk about him. Tyler Warren, I have done some research on. I looked at some Tyler Warren stuff over the bye week. And got familiar with him because he was a name I was seeing a lot of Colts fans talk about. Of course, tight end is a position of need for the Colts. And getting a star there, I think he can be that. But we'll have to see how the draft falls too. Of course, that's going to be a big deal. A year after you take an edge in the first round, do I like you taking an edge in the first round again when you just gave a former first round pick? You'll pick up his fifth year option, so he's going to be on the team, and it's a pretty big payday for Quiddy in terms of what he's been making. So I just think from what I know so far, I'm leaning Tyler Warren, but I'll get back to you on that. Feeling absolutely pissed off, yeah. Culture hopping in here. What's up, man? Garrett in here. Not great. Yeah, yeah, Irsay. Yeah, and that's really where all this is going to start. We'll talk about um, the future stuff, and we'll come back to the draft stuff. But we got some people hopping in here. Let's get into what we need to talk about. 'Cause not everybody's on social media all the time. I guess if you're on YouTube, you're probably on social media a decent bit. But if you hadn't seen what Jim Irsay put on here, am I a bot? Didn't I think I might not have saved that to the computer. Might have put that on my phone. Yeah, that's here on my phone. All right, just 1 second. So, Mr. Irsay. Last night during Sunday Night Football, Mr. Irsay, I think it was during Sunday Night Football, right? Yeah, time was 8:25, so literally at the same time as the game was starting. And Jim Irsay puts out a tweet of a letter, and it says, "Dear Colts fans, as we close out this season, I can't tell you how disappointed I am that we failed to win the AFC South and earn a playoff appearance. There's a high standard in this city for our team and anyone who steps on the field wearing the horseshoe. The expectation is to win our division and compete for championships. Just being on the doorstep of the playoffs is not the standard I expect, nor what you deserve. We understand that and always accept the challenge. Believe me, I know you share my impatience and frustration. I know you invest your time, energy, and money into the Colts every year. More than anything, we want to reward you with division titles and playoff runs, and we've fallen short in the most painful ways possible. And that can't be overstated. Like, the most painful ways possible is such a fact. Like, the way it's happened over the last few years has been gut-wrenching as Colts fans. The way 2022 went, even as bad as that year was, and even games where there was so much hope that we were up 33-0 one game, and we had so much hope that we could win, and we messed it up. And I feel like deep down in our stomachs, we all knew what would happen, and it happened. Like, and that's how being a Colts fan has felt over these past few years and during the Chris Ballard era, which makes what's coming up even harder to have to deal with, when he says, "But things evolve quickly in the NFL from week to week and season to season, so I will never stop being optimistic that this team can take the next step. I've been evaluating our entire operation, and I believe in Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen and our collective ability to make the improvements needed to take us to the next level in 2025. I know fans who want an immediate change in leadership will be disappointed. That means we will have a lot to prove, so we'll get back to work and keep doing what we can to earn your support and make you proud to be a Colts fan. Sincerely, Jim Irsay." Boy, what it's like to be a Colts fan in 2025. Yeah, Isaiah, you're saying it, man. Being a Colts fan is so stressful. Excuse me. Boy. Archie Manning, great name to bring up. You know, seems like we're on a fast track. Hey, let's suck and go get Archie Manning. Let's all run it back one more time just so that we can lose enough games to go get Arch Manning in 2026. Paul coming out with a $5 donation early on. I appreciate you, man. Of course. Appreciate you coming in with the donation. Seconds after I read Mr. Irsay's message, I decided I will not be attending any more games. I will watch now and then. I really don't blame you, man. That's the big takeaway for me. And the big takeaway from what I've seen, and again, thank you, man. Thank you for the donation. And that's what I've seen a lot of, people saying they're not going to Colts games. And that's what I was talking about yesterday during the game, right? During the game while we were doing the stream, and I was, telling people, like, listen, I don't live in Indiana. Like, if Irsay were to sell the team, right? If Irsay sold the team or moved the team out, or he sold the team and somebody else moved the team out, and I live in Florida, bro. I don't care where the Colts are. I want the Colts to win. And so, like for me, like, investing in this team, not investing in this team, not a big deal. For others, like my grandpa, season ticket holder forever. Like, my family wants to continue being season ticket holders, wants them to stay in. He wants to keep investing in the team, but the product on the field is trash. I wouldn't blame anybody for not wanting to invest money in the team, not wanting, not buying jerseys, not going to games. Like, you can't blame anybody for that, but it's going to get to a point where, once again, the home stadium is going to be filled with other teams' fans. So right now we're in a tough spot. The decision to keep Ballard and Irsay is a very interesting one, to say the least. To say the least. Markel, what's up, buddy? I hope I said that right. Markel, what's up, bub? 2023 Colts were a respectable team with Minshew. Yeah, it's crazy, and I like that the veterans are called, like DeForest Buckner talking about the ego on the team during his end of year press conference. He mentioned the egos on the team and how a lot of the inconsistency from the defensive side of the ball came because there were different times where people were just playing selfish and egos got in the way and people wanted to do their own things instead of playing as one, right? 11 playing as one. And I thought it was good that DeForest Buckner at least called that out. Right now it's about what are we going to do? And of course, the fact that he completely sounds like he expects to stay here, he wants to stay here. I love that. I thought for sure he'd be one of the veterans that's like, you know what, man, this isn't going to work. Go ahead, get me out of here. Instead, he's talking about, I signed back here because I believe in it. And he sounds like, hey, he's going to try to work in a way where he can get some free agents coming in to try to help rebuild the culture, help rebuild a winning football team. And again, between practice squad and free agency, 41 free agents coming up. 41 free agents. So this is a great time to flip the roster, get a whole lot of new people in here, and really start to make a change. If we're going to make a change, again, 41 I've said it so much, man, and I'm sorry for those that pay attention, those that watch all the videos. I've said it a lot, but 41 free agents with that kind of turnover, when you need to make a change on the fly, this is it. This is the time, which is why I thought it was a good time to get rid of Chris Ballard and bring in a new GM that can bring in a bunch of different guys. But Ballard just needs to change. How is Ballard going to change what he does? And Ballard actually has a press conference Wednesday at 9 is when his press conference is going to be. Looking at my work schedule. So for those of you that do watch it, right? I'll be talking about it later that day. I work my day job in the morning through the afternoon. So it'll be a little later when we're talking about Chris Ballard and what he had to say. And we'll be talking more Cliff Notes. By the time I do it, we'll be talking more Cliff Notes instead of really going into detail about everything he said and kind of the reaction from it. But nonetheless, that'll be Wednesday when he has his press conference. We'll see what he has to say. What questions is he going to face this time around? What's he going to say this time around that's different from what he's said before? How's his approach going to change? That's what James Boyd on Twitter, he asked, hey, is there any legitimate questions anybody has? That's my question. With the approach that you've had, Mr. Chris Ballard, it's clear it's led to us being consistent of not winning, right? So what's going to change in the approach to change things where we can win games? That is a simple question, but what's going to happen? What would he even tell us? I don't know, but we just got it. Something, obviously something has to change. Leadership's not changing. So far, Gus, at the moment that this stream is happening, Gus is still in the building. Gus hasn't been fired. And so will that change? Will we keep Gus and just try to get a lot of new guys on defense, right? Obviously, Carly's is probably going to be expected to play this upcoming season. You're losing EJ Speed, more than likely not coming back. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I thought this past offseason would be the offseason where we really saw Chris Ballard say, hey, let's flip that switch. We got the young quarterback. He showed some good flashes, even though obviously there has to be some growth. He showed some good, and it didn't happen. And Chris Ballard was still Chris Ballard. So will anything change this offseason? My thoughts, okay, this is my thoughts on them bringing back. There are a couple, actually. It's one, I think league-wide, when you look at other teams and what other teams are doing, I think that league-wide there's been talks in the league meetings between the owners about, hey, there's this much money, like a couple of years ago, maybe it was a year ago, $180 million going to fired head coaches, right? So I think, and then you factor in GMs, right? They're still getting the money that they were guaranteed, right? Coaches' contracts are guaranteed. GM contracts, that stuff is guaranteed. So I think that league-wide there's an effort to be more patient, really, but to stop having so much loose money out there. So I think that's a reason for it, trying to have not as many years of needing to pay guys after you get rid of them. And I think 2025 is a prove-it year. I think other people have said it here in the chat. I think 2025 is going to be a big season for, hey, Anthony's got to be able to figure it out. This team has to be able to figure it out. Between coaches, we have to see real change. We have to see winning start to happen. We have to make the playoffs. Like, we won 9 games last year, 8 games this year. We can't continue to regress. We have to go forward. We have to win 10-plus games. We have to make the playoffs. And there's no other option. So I think if that doesn't happen, we could see that's when you see the real turnover. The real turnover. GM, front office, sweep them. Coaches, sweep them out. Bunch of players gone. And that's when I think we could see massive moves. It is going to be if we once again fail to make the playoffs, if we win 6, 7, 8 games next year, I think that's when everybody's out. You can only be patient for so long. How long do you give Chris Ballard? How long do you give Chris Ballard to continue to build and keep the guys that he wanted all these guys? And it'll be interesting to see with all these guys going out, what's going to be the compensatory pick situation? How many will we gain from that? Will that help us? Can we be able to move up in this draft to get guys higher in the second round maybe? It'll be interesting to see how we're able to maneuver going forward. There's so much to contemplate, so much to talk about. I'm just kind of trying to keep track of you guys as I'm talking, and just keep seeing you guys mention Jason Bean. We're going to talk about him. I promise. We're definitely going to talk about him. Because he might be pretty good competition. I'm just saying. But part of this video, part of the title here is to talk about, right, the season in review. We're not going to go through everything in detail and every game in detail, but just to kind of go in review of the season and what it was, and then of course we'll come back to what we're doing, what are we doing next, what should we do, those sorts of things. This isn't really going to be much of a quick stream, but I'll do it as quick as I can. I don't want to keep you guys all night long. I know we all got families, you all got other stuff, you want to do other things you want to watch probably. So let's get into it, right? Talking about the beginning of the season and just what we saw. And I think something to note just from the preseason, from training camp when we were doing practice with the Cardinals. We had joint practice with the Cardinals. That's when Michael Pittman Jr. initially had the back pain, initially started feeling the back. And in week 3, there was something that happened. I think, we played the Steelers that week, right? And then, you think last year, the game against the Steelers and the hit that he took, right? And then to come back this year, week 3, plays the Steelers, has to go get a scan. Turns out, bro had a fractured back. So, essentially, a broken back. And out there playing. So, some of you were in the stream yesterday. I was talking about a video that I wanted to do about somebody that I wasn't thrilled about the money they made and their performance this year. That was going to be Michael Pittman Jr. That video not going to happen. Michael Pittman Jr. is a dog. Michael Pittman Jr. put it all on the line. Hearing what he had to say, if you didn't hear what he had to say after a stream, man, go over to the Colts YouTube and check out the Locker Room Talk end of season offense. Michael Pittman Jr., man, to come out and put it all on the line for his teammates the way he did. Like, I didn't know it was that serious. I knew dealing with the back injury is tough, especially as a receiver. But I just think at the end of the day, Pittman coming out having a fractured back and playing on it, he's a G. He's a G. So I appreciate Pitt, a guy that I want to stick around. Now, obviously, can't continue to have the drops. Your number one receiver can't have so many drops. But I think he finished the season strong. Right, he had the bye week. I think he had a couple. I think there were a couple weeks that we kept him out, if I'm not mistaken. But he finished the season strong, I thought. Of course, Flacco being in there, Flacco threw a lot there over those last couple games, but he was able to put it together and put together some good numbers to end the season, good to end on for him, and hopefully he can build on that coming into the next season. Of course, that depends on Anthony Richardson, and that's where a lot of our season, it was so up and down. Anthony Richardson, of course, in and out of the lineup, starts the year in the lineup, then, of course, hurt, and then comes back, and then gets benched, and then comes back, and then has the back spasms at the end of the season. So very up and down. But for what it's worth, the majority of our wins this season came with Anthony playing. And I think there's something to be said for that. Through all of through everything that you could say about Anthony, all the negative out there about Anthony, so many people out on Anthony and ready to be done with Anthony, and I get it. It wasn't pretty, and all the inexperience and how there's a lot of development that needs to happen. I will continue to come back to the fact that this is going to be his first off season, right? Once he can get going after the back spasms and he's good to go to really go 100%. Coming into this off season, take some time with your family, take some time, let your body rest up, and then come February, boom, hit the ground running. Now it's time for Anthony to develop. First off season in his NFL career where he can really develop. Right during the season, it's hard to really develop. I've heard different NFL players talk about it before. Once you're in the grind of the NFL season, you're doing the teamwork and the preparation and the recovery through the year, and everything that goes in to trying to win week to week. You can't really work on excelling your game that much from week to week. Of course, you see it from guys, and of course, from rookies, you'll see it as time goes on. But it's really from year to year when you can see guys figure some things out. You can see guys work on themselves and get better. And I think that's why I have high hopes for next season. Is, hey, Anthony has a year, an off season to really develop himself. He's healthy for the most part coming into this off season. So we'll see, hey, can we get it done? Which is why I think, again, this is a big prove it year. He has the off season to develop. The coaches have an off season to get their hands on Anthony and to help him develop into what we need him to develop into, and really put a plan together to make him the quarterback that he needs to be for us to be a successful football team going into the future. And I think fundamentally that's just going to be huge. That's going to be huge for what we need right now and in the future, and what he's going to need. And I think, again, that in 2025, that's why if the development for the team as a whole doesn't work, then after 2025, Ballard, Steichen, if we do end up keeping Gus Bradley, if he ends up not getting fired, then right, you keep all of them this year. If it doesn't work, boom, they're all out next year. That's just what it feels like to me. The overwhelming feeling that I have is this is one last ride, man. You either figure it out or it's all gonna go. You can't continue to have this in the building. And so going forward, how do we change that, right? That's going to be the big question, is how we change that. And again, that hinges on And it's going to be interesting to see what Chris Ballard says on Wednesday. Like, what's going to be the plan going forward? We heard earlier in the week, right? There's no vision. There's no vision for the team. And that's, as a professional franchise, it doesn't matter what sport, just as a professional franchise, that's crazy. And maybe it's just a player, right? It's an unnamed player, anonymous veteran player in the Colts locker room. Who could that be? Maybe that's one of the 41 guys that's not going to be here anymore. And maybe that's how he feels. And maybe there's just too many guys in the locker room that feel like that. And that's a problem. Like run it back. Like the latest comment here, run it back. Like that's just what it feels like. How much are we going to run it back? You guys saw the thumbnail or, coming in, right? The definition of insanity is us. Like, we just keep doing the same thing over and over, keep getting the same results. Like, we differ in wins, whether it's 4 wins or 9 wins. Like, it doesn't matter. We're not making the playoffs. We're not having playoff runs. So, what can really change? You know what I mean? I just hope it does change, right? Seeing the amount of people that are in here, seeing you guys talking about this team and seeing how much and knowing how much I care, knowing how much you guys care about this team. Something's got to give. Something's got to give. We got to change something. We got to become what we were, because this is, I believe I heard on the Pat McAfee show today, currently tied for the longest playoff drought in Colts franchise history. I think from 89 to 93 or something like that, 88 to 93, something of the sort. Tied for the longest or breaking for the longest, something like that, which is pretty crazy because there were some lean years, during the years for the Colts. I don't know the entire Colts history dating back as long as they've been around, but I feel like I know a decent amount. There have been some lean years. I've heard about it, some lean years. And, what we're putting together right now, historically bad. And fans don't deserve it. A lot of you guys, a lot of the fans, a lot of the people that come and watch the content, a lot of you guys still live in Indy. You still go to Colts games. And to invest your money in a franchise and invest your time into a franchise that continues to just run it back, and we're not getting better, but we're going to run it back again. Like, Colts fans don't deserve it. So, of course, we would, for all fans and our sanity, you hope we turn it around, hope a philosophy changes. And I kind of get the vibe just from different reports that I've seen, different things that I've heard, different things that I've put together. I think Shane is about, because there's going to be so much roster flip over here, I think Shane's about to have more control. I think Ballard has had a good amount of control over a lot of things. Just from what I can get, I think Shane is about to have an opportunity to start to run things. I think he's going to have a lot of decisions on the roster. He's been with this roster for 2 years. I think he's about to have a big role in putting together this roster. I think he's going to have a big role in in changing the coaching staff as he sees fit, the roster as he sees fit. I think he's going to have a hand in saying, hey, some of these veteran guys should probably kick rocks. We need to bring in guys from outside of the building, guys from winning programs to put into this room and that room, and we need to get better at this position. I think Shane's going to get more control just from what I've gathered. This is just, I don't know anything. I don't have inside sources. It's just putting context clues together, and I feel like I do a pretty good job with that. Not always on spot, of course, but I do feel like I do pretty good with that. And I just think at the end of the day, Shane's going to get more control, and Chris Ballard, we'll see how that goes, right? With what Chris Ballard's done, I think that's fair. Steichen is a football nerd. I think he's a guy that is so obsessive that he would benefit from a role like that. But also, how much do you want to put on your plate? I don't think there's really any – I don't think giving up play calling is really in the cards. That's been mentioned. I don't know. That just doesn't seem like it's going to happen. So we'll see when it comes to that. But, again, something's got to change. What's going to change? If you want to change the results, you got to change something, and he's not changing the leadership. Jim Irsay, he already said he's not changing the leadership. So what all is going to change is going to be the big question, right? And going through the season, again, coming back to kind of the season in review, right? And going through the season and again, going through the games of Anthony, and especially early on, and I thought he started to hit his stride in that Steelers game, and I thought he looked good early on, and then he gets hurt with the hip injury, and I thought that threw off pretty much the rest of the season. Him getting hurt in week 3, because of course week 1 didn't go the way you thought it would go. Week 2. As a team, it looked terrible, and going against the Packers in Lambeau, that was an awful game to have to sit through as a Colts fan. From either team, not really exciting, just a brutal game to watch. And then being able to win against the Bears, I thought we showed some good stuff against the Bears, and then came into the Steelers, and then we went from showing some good stuff, then going into the Steelers. And in that game, you end up in a position where, again, Anthony plays well early on and looks good early on, and then gets hurt. We still end up winning that game, but then as he ends up coming back, right, we go to Jacksonville, and of course going to Jacksonville, it happened again. We gave up 37 points. One of the only teams at Jacksonville, they win 4 games this year. We're one of them once again. And that throws a wrench in things. We're able to beat the Titans, but that was a sloppy game. And then getting Anthony back after that point again, and it was just up and down from there, man. And then the tap out, and then getting benched. We go out, get embarrassed with Joe Flacco on primetime, get flexed into primetime, and get embarrassed against the Vikings, just look terrible. And then get flexed out of primetime against the Jets. We end up winning that game. We'll lose against the Bills, get embarrassed against the Lions. A lot of teams got embarrassed against the Lions, but that looked bad. And then, of course, the Patriots game, right? And the thing, Anthony had game-winning drives, which is good to see. Those are things you want to see. And he had decent games, right? Coming back against the Jets, having a good game, a game-winning drive. But it's the Jets. Like, we were able to beat bad teams. And I think those are good building. But I think coming out of the season, those are good building blocks, right? Looking back on the season, those are games, the Patriots and the Jets games, where it's like, hey, those were bad teams. They didn't win many games. But at the end of the day, we found a way to win a game in the NFL. And Anthony found a way. Even in the Patriots game where his numbers, like the Jets game, his numbers were good. In the Patriots games, numbers not as good for Anthony, but we found a way to win. And he found a way to will us to a win. We aren't winning that Patriots game without Anthony. And again, I think that's something to take away from this season, is that Anthony, for all of the ups and downs, like, they're just some of these games we're not winning without Anthony. And I think that's what we can take into the future, right? Some of this stuff wasn't even his fault. As I sit here and look at it, like, these teams that we played at the end of the season, we should have won a bunch of these end of season games. You give up, as a defense, you give up 27 to the Jets, 24 to the Patriots. Broncos were a good team, but we give up 31 to them. You give up 30 to the Titans. You give up 45 to the Giants. That was like the most points they scored since like 2017 or something crazy. 45 to the Giants. And they give up 23 to the Jaguars after giving up 37 to the Jaguars earlier in the season. So defense really, a lot of the time, defense did let Anthony down. A lot of the time, Anthony's receivers and tight ends let Anthony down. But there were also different times. Of course, Anthony was missing throws, and you can't go past that. You can't just say it's not Anthony's fault. It is Anthony's fault that he's missing the throws. He has to be better. Looking over here, Paul with another 5. Appreciate you, brother. Look at the teams we even beat. over the past 5 years. Who even had a winning record? But that is a great point because, and that's what I talk about when I say I've lied to myself for a long time about this team and about this iteration of this team and the talent that we had on this team. It's not. We don't have that much incredible talent on this team because we don't beat a lot of great teams. We don't. If we face a good team, it's almost like for years it's been like if we play a team like a for sure playoff team, it's like, whew, I don't know if we're winning this one. But we usually don't. And then when we play bad teams, right, in our division has a big part in that, right? Titans, Jaguars, Texans, they've all won the division more recently than us, multiple times more recently than us, but they've all also been terrible, just like us pretty recently in their own right. So at the end of the day, we get some easy wins in the division and then some other easy wins, but we can't beat good teams. It's been like that for a long time. So you're exactly right. And that's when you talk about the roster flip over. Like, how do we – because you have that roster flip over, right? 41 free agents between practice squad and active roster, but we have it's like $53 million or $56 million to $50-something million that the Colts are going to have. And it's like, so you still have all these guys making all this money on the team, or this little of guys, or this little of a roster, right? It's like half a roster basically that you have taking up almost all your money. You got to replace all those guys on that little money, and you can't do that. Which is where letting go of and talking about, what comes next, right? And how do we get better in the future? Well, you have to be real with yourself about guys that you brought in. Chris Ballard, it's time to say, hey, I've brought in all these guys. It hasn't worked with all these guys. We've tried our best. Some of them injuries, some of them just not good enough. Whatever the case may be, the Braden Smiths of the world, get them out of the building. Zaire Franklin's of the world, possibly get them out of the building. Like, I don't know what it looks like, and I don't know who you bring in and how you do all that. I haven't gotten that deep into it of how you would replace all that and what it would cost and going through the cap numbers and what guys would be expected to make and all that good stuff. I haven't gotten that deep into it. But what I will say is that even with the guys that aren't free agents, I think there's a number of guys, a number of veteran players that don't need to be. They have no business wearing the horseshoe in week 1 of 2025. Guys that don't uphold the standard of being a Colt. I think what you say publicly matters. I do. When you're in a professional league, getting paid as much as you're getting paid to be a run stopper, getting paid all that money, and you do all that talking, and the only teams you beat are bad teams, and sometimes you get blown out by a bad team like the Giants after saying you wanted to play a bad team in a big market like the Giants to get your numbers up. That's how I feel about that situation. Right? And then they're just some of these veterans that some of these veterans got to go, man. Some of these veterans got to go. And you got to rebuild it. And again, going back as I scroll up here and just trying to see some of the stuff you guys been talking about. I'm seeing Jason Bean. I think Jason Bean showed some good stuff last preseason. I know it's just a preseason. I know he's going up against backups, and it's a much different game if you throw him into a game, a real game action. Throw him in against the Bills, right? Something goes wrong, you had to throw him in. But how would that look? And what's it going to look? I think you got to give more competition. That was something DeForest Buckner was asked about, actually, was, do you think things have to change where there's more competition? Because when you think about it, we had basically all the same starters from last year, this year, right? So it's like all these, which is what I talked about in the offseason. You have all these guys that, like, it's guaranteed they're going to be the starters. So, like, complacency happens, and what I thought would happen happened. I was hoping for better, but what I thought would happen happened. And DeForest Buckner was asked about it, and he basically echoed the same sentiment of, hey, we need to find a way to get more competition, right? So getting different guys in the building, you get more competition coming into the building, and I thought it was interesting because he mentioned how AD getting drafted put pressure on Alec Pierce. And then you see Alec Pierce. Alec Pierce was our best receiver this year, and it wasn't close. Right? In Josh Downs, he missed some time for various reasons. But nonetheless, Alec Pierce, as long as he was getting thrown the ball, he was our most consistent receiver from that aspect. And if he had the least amount of drops, he was making big plays. He almost had 1,000 yards. Alec Pierce was great this year. And we all said it. I'll say it. I said I have no problem saying when I was wrong. I have no problem. And I said if I'm wrong about Alec Pierce, I'll say so. And I was wrong about Alec Pierce. Right? I thought his numbers would be better because Anthony Richardson could throw the ball downfield, or Joe Flacco could throw the ball downfield, whoever it was. They could get the ball to Alec Pierce. I thought his numbers would be better, but what he showed this year, I thought he showed glimpses last year of being able to do different things, not just the go ball. This year he came in, and with AD coming in and seemingly supposed to be the guy that was, hey, if AP doesn't step up early, AD's the guy. And AP stepped up early, and AP stepped up often. And Alec Pierce showed that he's a guy that is deserving of another contract. Alec's a dog. He's a big body. He's a willing blocker. He can go up and get it. He can run past guys. Like this last game against the Jaguars. Jaguars were trash. But he was running by those guys all day. He could have easily had a career day, right? I think there were a couple times quarterback just didn't have enough time to find him downfield, but Alec was running by guys all day. So Alec, just glad, as a Colts fan, glad to see. And again, I'll take my part saying I was wrong about Alec and just how good he could be. I thought there was a cap on Alec, but he really showed this year that he can do a lot. And he can do more, and he's a real number 2 wide receiver with wide receiver 1 upside, and that's exciting. And the development of him is exciting. Good to see that Reggie, as long as Reggie gets his hands on these guys, they can develop. That's what you want to see. You want to see it work with some guys. You're seeing it work with Alec Pierce. Michael Pittman Jr., again, I'll give him a pass. I was about to not give Michael Pittman Jr. a pass, but hearing that he had a fractured back and was playing, and to finish the season, finish the way that he did this season, I feel good about our top 2 receivers. Continuing to create that competition. AD, in his end-of-year press conference, he talked about professionalism and understanding and being aware of needing to become more of a professional. It's good to see from there. We know Josh Downs is going to have a better year next year. Really got thrown through a loop for Josh Downs when he had that injury early in the season in training camp. Had to miss some games early in the season, miss some games later in the season. And so just a tough season for Josh Downs. He still had good numbers and still had good performances for sure. And just hope to see better from him next year. He has some drops. As the year went on, he has some drops. And I think that's the biggest thing. Reggie Wayne going into the offseason, if he sticks as receiver coach, if he wants to, and if we should. Obviously, the development's working. Excuse me. So, hopefully he stays in that role and he wants to come back. You know, one of these Colts legends, we need the Colts legends in the building. We need them in the building as much as humanly possible to continue to reiterate what the standard is. But to continue talking about the wide receivers and what they did, I mean, hey, listen, Pitt and Buck are both always injured all the time, and seemingly battling through things, but they play through it because they're dogs. You love to see it, making that sacrifice for their teammates. What Pitt said, if you didn't hear after this stream, if you didn't hear what Michael Pittman Jr. said during his locker room talk, end of season press conferences for the offense, after this stream, please go watch Michael Pittman Jr. Again, the video I planned on having about Michael Pittman Jr., we will no longer be having about Michael Pittman Jr. Because just hearing him talk and hearing him talk about what he went through this season, hear him talk about what he put on the line and why he went through what he went through this season, and put it all out there. I mean, I saw other people say lifetime contract. Love Michael Pittman Jr. Yeah, love Michael Pittman Jr. Glad to have him in the building. He's a dog, and I'm glad to have him. But nonetheless, glad to see what we saw from the receivers. Of course, again, Anthony, and just going through a review of all the different parts of the team here. You think about the quarterback. Anthony, of course, has to develop. Again, this offseason is going to be huge. First offseason, he's healthy. He doesn't have to do combine training. He can work on him. And the coaches have to get their hands on him. We have to be better at the quarterback position and figuring out how to be better as a passer. He has to work on himself. He has to get with his receivers at some point and get on the same page with his receivers. Work on the playbook with his receivers in the offseason. That's what we have to do. That has to be the offseason plan. That's what I assume the plan is going to be, and that's what we got to do. And then looking at the running back, of course, Jonathan Taylor ended the season looking like Jonathan Taylor. I mean, incredible what he put together at the end of the year when we needed him to start carrying the team. He was carrying the team. And he looked incredible at the end of the season. Had that fumble, even with the fumble in that Broncos game, had a really good game, but obviously that fumble turned things around in that football game. Really had a big emphasis on, or had a big impact, is the right word, had a big impact on how our season ended. But nonetheless, JT, fine. I want him in the building. I agree with a lot of things Pat McAfee said. I don't agree about Jonathan Taylor needing to leave. I think still our best player, and I think having him next to Anthony is going to be crucial for what we're trying to do on offense. But we have to draft or go get a guy in free agency. I haven't looked at the running back free agency market. You have to get somebody behind Jonathan where Jonathan, when Jonathan is in that mode, let him carry it, and that's fine. But we need a guy behind him, right? And I saw somebody else mention, and I think it's a good comparison. You might not get this high-level guy, but Dave Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. If you can get a great 1-2 punch, I think that's great. That's why I wanted us so badly to draft Braylon Allen in the last draft. We didn't get him. So there are a lot of really good running backs coming in this upcoming draft. At some point, we have to get a back to be behind Jonathan Taylor that we can depend on if Jonathan does miss time, or somebody that we can just relieve Jonathan Taylor so that he doesn't have to do 30 carries a game, right? We can give Jonathan 22, 24 carries a game and give him a heavy workload and have him have, 100 plus yards every game and a touchdown plus every game, but still have a backup that can put up 10 to 12 carries, and be able to get you, 32 to 44 yards, maybe throwing a touchdown in there, whatever the case may be. That's one thing we need to figure out in the offseason when you evaluate the running backs here in the immediate part of this offseason. We already talked about wide receivers, continuing to develop that. Ashton Doolin, love him, but you can probably find other special teams guys. We should probably replace the special teams coaches. That side of the ball, that part of our team has gone downhill quickly, and they're not good enough. And they're veterans that are taking up too much of the cap when you talk about putting together the roster and needing to side more high-end talent. Special teams just going to, if you just get younger guys that can play special teams, get other veteran guys that aren't going to cost as much as Ashton Doolin, and have you can't have Anthony Gould inactive every week next year, and continue to develop him as well. Is really my point there. Hold on, let me get some water here. Starting to get a little parched. Now the offensive line is interesting. I think for the most part it's pretty settled on what we can expect, but I think there's one part. The right guard is a little up in the air. Will Fries is set to be a free agent. So will we decide to bring him back after his injury? Will we roll with Dalton Tucker and just hope that the development works there, right? Because it's going to be, excuse me, it's going to be Bernie, Quentin, Tanner Bortolini, Mac and Savez, assuming we trade Braden Smith or release him, probably release, and save $16 million. Mac and Savez at right tackle. Then who fills in at right guard? Excuse me. And in that instance, I'm not totally opposed to bringing back Glow. All right. I think Glow did a fine job for us the first time he was here. I think he came in when we were in a pinch. Dalton Tucker wasn't cutting it anymore. We needed a guy to fill in. Glow came in and helped Jonathan Taylor finish extremely well at the end of the season. Glow's not perfect. He's been with the Giants and the Vikings since he was here last, but he came in, and I thought he played well. I thought he did a good job coming in. Right, last time he was here was Frank Reich and Frank Reich's offense. He came in and quickly, boom. Shane Steichen's offense had to get on the field, and I thought he did well. So I think that's the expectation for me and what I would hope. We'll see what happens there. But that right guard position is once again going to be a question mark for the Colts here in the early part of the offseason. And what are we going to do at that position? Or, hey, for all I know, and knowing Chris Ballard, we're going to keep Braden Smith, and Mac and Savez is going to play right guard. Who knows? That more I think about it, the more likely that sounds. But we'll see. But I think the expectation is a lot of young guys on the offensive line. Q obviously should be an all-pro again this year. Incredible season from Q. Not perfect, of course. No offensive lineman is perfect. But incredible season from Q once again. Looking like his old self after a couple of years of dealing with, back injuries and dealing with that as an offensive lineman. The team really, hadn't been in a good spot. So I think Q, a big bounce back season from him, and I thought he played well. And we'll see what we do with the depth after that. A lot of the free agents that we have, some of those are going to be offensive linemen. So we'll see what we do with offensive line depth. We had good depth this year. But now a lot of those depth pieces, these young guys, are getting thrusted into starting roles. What will we do with the offensive line? That's going to be question marks going into the season. Then transitioning to the defensive line. Now, okay, before you start with the defense itself, you start with, or before you start with the players, you start with the coaches. Whole new defensive staff. Whole new. All of them. Gone. Gone. Every single one of them. Just get a whole new defense. Sweep the whole thing. Let Shane Steichen revamp everything, right? You're keeping Shane Steichen. And this is what I was talking about earlier. Shane Steichen getting control, because I do think the special teams coaches should be gone too. This is where Shane Steichen gains control of the roster, gains control of his coaching, because where he came in, he kept a lot of the coaching staff from the defense. And so I think coming in, I think it'll be a good idea. He sweeps as much of the defensive coaching staff as he wants, special teams, and even some of the offense. What does he think the offense needs to change with? Even though I do think Tony Sperano Jr., I think, is a great offensive line coach. I think we're lucky to have him, and he should stay. What's Jim Bob Cooter's value? I don't know. I think Reggie Wayne has to stay. Right, we're not going to go into all of them here, but they're. How does he need to change it? Him taking more control is going to play a big part in the offseason. And what happens with the coaches? When will those announcements happen? But will Gus Bradley stay is the biggest question. Will that defensive staff stay is the biggest question, because in my opinion, you need a different guy like Robert Salah. You need a guy like that that's going to come in and play Latu as many snaps as possible. Why? Because Latu's drafted 15th. He is great. He gets the most pressure of anybody on the team in his rookie season, and he only plays 51% of the snaps. How does that make sense? I need somebody. How does that make sense? And how is that Latu's fault? There are a lot of Colts fans that I've seen over the last few weeks talking about Latu's numbers are trash. He didn't do anything. I expected him to play more. Okay, hold on. Before there are videos in the offseason saying, I hope Gus Bradley changes his approach of a rotation. I had a fear of Gus Bradley's rotation because Latu might not play enough. That ended up being the case. If he plays 85% of the snaps instead of 51% of the snaps, then you probably end up in a spot where Latu ends up with at least 8 sacks. Keep him on the field. You need your edge rushers to stay on the field to get into a rhythm. That's what great coaches realize, and Gus Bradley didn't realize it. He doesn't play his best players on the defensive line. Like DeForest Buckner, he might be getting older. He might play through injuries, but if Bro can play, Bro needs to play. He's just going to have to be conditioned enough to be able to make it in the fourth quarter and in overtime when we need to win. The team has to be good enough. You need to condition your players better at that point. The best guys need to play, and Gus Bradley doesn't do that, which is where evaluations on the defensive side of the ball become so difficult in regards to the defensive line. And really in the secondary also, because the defensive line affects the secondary and vice versa. And when you have a rotation of guys, instead of just playing your best guys, then at different times and through a lot of the games, because none of your pass rushers can get into a rhythm because none of them are on the field enough, then your secondary suffers because you're not getting after the quarterback. And that's a pattern with this defense. And the corners are put in a terrible spot. Safeties are put in a terrible spot. Linebackers even put in a terrible spot, giving them some leniency. And so overall, what we do on defense just doesn't work. You got to play your best pass rushers so that you can get after the quarterback on a consistent basis. Gus Bradley doesn't do that. But I do think of all the free agents that we have, all of them could go and I'd be fine. But also you have Dio Dingbo. And even though, and it's tough because we have the 5th-year option. Chris Ballard got the 5th-year option on Kwity Paye. And Kwity is consistent in the fact that, once every other game or so, he's going to get a sack. He's going to make some tackles in the run game. But he's not worth what he's going to make on the 5th-year option money. In my opinion, my honest opinion. But so now you have him on the cap with that, but you have Dio Dingbo, who I think if you have Latu and Dio on the field together, Latu at left end and Dio at right end, I think that would be a better combination. And not having Latu standing up and moving around the defensive line, like when I watched film of Latu in college, he had his hand in the dirt and he was rushing the passer, man, like as a defensive end. And again, that's why I want Mike Vrabel is almost guaranteed to be the head coach of the New England Patriots. So unfortunate, but that's just the reality. But Robert Saleh, if he's not going to be a head coach this cycle and he's okay with being a defensive coordinator somewhere, please, I am begging every football god that exists and any just anything out there that will listen to my prayer, please don't let Gus Bradley be the Colts defensive coordinator in 2025. Please give me somebody else, preferably Robert Saleh. Like, please. Holy cow. Could you imagine? Even when Anthony plays bad, our offense usually will score at least 20 points. Because Anthony will find a way. The run game, we have Jonathan Taylor, will find a way to put up some points. Could you imagine if we had Robert Saleh and he got his hands on the defense and we played defense the way defense is supposed to be played and we kept teams to 16 points a game? We're going to win 11 games just because our defense is consistent enough to keep the points off the board while our quarterback, who's still young and figuring it out, but comes into 2025 better and shows some improvement, and we can win 10 or 11 games. And then that's got to be the plan for the offseason. Boy, Ebicom, I'm glad you mentioned that. I completely forgot about Samson Ebicom. That is a veteran. I've seen people say, Ebicom, go ahead and get him out. You could save some money releasing him. And I think that could be a possibility. It also depends if Gus Bradley stays. Samson Ebicom is going to stay and be a part of the rotation. Because that's what Gus Bradley does. So, yeah. Feels like Gus is going to stay. I have a gut feeling Gus is going to stay. But continuing with the defense, EJ Speed probably out. Matt Eberflus would be interesting. I thought the same thing. Bring Eberflus back. That's a possibility. We'll see what happens with that. We'll see. But at least Matt Eberflus. At least Matt Eberflus had a system in place for effort. There had to be effort. Loafs. You can't loaf. That's why the Bears defense fell off a cliff when Matt Eberflus wasn't there. There's a system for it. I don't know what it is, but it works. And the effort's not there for the Colts. I'm just saying. Matt Eberflus, our defense was top 12, top 14 with Matt Eberflus. I'm just saying. We also had Shaq. But I'm just saying. All right. And I'm just saying I was ready to be done with Matt Eberflus too. But, boy, our defense fell off a cliff with Matt Eberflus out of the building. But the linebackers, Zaire Franklin, wouldn't be mad if we traded him. He's a tackle machine, but he's only a tackle machine because the defense is on the field more than anybody else in the NFL every year under Gus Bradley. Right? The two kind of go hand in hand. EJ Speed, probably not going to be a Colt anymore. Jalen Carley's coming in. I expect him to have a bigger role. I expect him to come in and be somebody that's effective. And I think a guy like Robert Saleh could do some good things with a guy like Jalen Carley's. I think we need to revamp the linebacker room as a whole. And I think the safeties, obviously Nick Cross did good this year. I thought he had a good season. Just continue to develop him, and coverage is where he needs to continue to get better. But, of course, he's playing closer to the line of scrimmage. He has more ground to cover. Little give and take there with Nick Cross, but I think his development's good, and I think his athleticism good. I thought he did well this year. Again, his numbers are as big as they are because we were on the field so much. But nonetheless, I thought he showed some good things this year, and I'd like to see what he can show us in a better system. Julian Blackmon, didn't really want him back last year. Get him out of the building. I'd be fine with him being gone this year. And then, of course, you need to revamp. What are you going to do? A strong safety? Probably bring in a veteran. If you're going to bring in a veteran, that's probably the market you're looking at, is bringing in a veteran safety and see what you can do from that regard. And then looking at the corners, you have Juju Brents, who can't stay healthy. Indy kid, comes from Ben Davis. I have a lot of family that went to Ben Davis. I grew up in that area and around that area for a little while. So it's too bad what's happening to him. He just can't stay healthy. He's seemingly just not built for the league. I hope that changes, and I hope he's able to just get healthy in the offseason, come back, but sign Samuel Womack, right? Have Jalen Jones, Samuel Womack, Juju Brents. At the moment, Kenny Moore, obviously I see you saying Kenny Moore is overrated. I thought Kenny Moore had a big bounce back year. It wasn't perfect for Kenny. Kenny over the time. Kenny hasn't been perfect. He's never been like guaranteed all-pro year to year. Kenny has some slip-ups, right? But, hey, from Kenny's perspective, especially in today's NFL, when you live in the paint, sometimes you're going to get dunked on. All right? Kenny had a really good bounce-back season from what happened. I thought 2023, Kenny had more of a down year and showed some real volatility, right? Really down in 2022, up and down last year for Kenny. But again, I thought this year Kenny was really good. And that's just my opinion. I thought Kenny was good. But the other corners, just having all these guys, but I want to re-sign Samuel Womack to continue having that competition that DeForest Buckner was talking about. And we need to continue to create different competition at different positions. That's got to be the plan for the offseason as we sit here and gonna try to wrap this one up for you guys. I appreciate you guys coming by. So many of you guys in the chat. Appreciate you guys coming by here. But as we wrap this up, the plan for the offseason has to be this, man. You got to bring in competition with so much roster flip over, the 41 free agents, so much roster flip over. Anthony needs competition. Jonathan Taylor needs somebody to relieve some pressure and, maybe some competition back there. Wide receivers continue to create competition. Offensive line, you get some depth, create competition. With the defensive line, get a defensive coordinator that's going to play the right guys and have competition. Linebackers, bring in guys that are more worried about doing everything and not just getting tackles so they can be Pro Bowlers and all pros and up their numbers for all the da-da-da and the contracts that are coming up, like Zaire Franklin's of the world. Right? Get different guys in the building, in that linebacker room, create competition of guys that deserve to wear the horseshoe. In the safety room, create competition. Don't let anybody get comfortable. That's the main focus. We've had the same starters year. We can't keep doing it. These guys think their jobs are guaranteed, and you can't keep letting that happen. Complacency sets in, and it's ruining our culture. We have to be better because we as teams, we as fans of this team, we all deserve better, man. We all deserve better. We all pour so much into it. So much of our time, so much of our energy gets poured into this team. The investment, they're season ticket holders. They're so much of you guys like to go to the games, and we all buy the merch. I got 3 helmets sitting behind me and a sign. Like, bro, we all buy the merch, a Colts shirt, a Colts hat. We invest our time. We invest our money. our energy, our passion gets put into this team and they keep disappointing us. It has to be better. And as we continue through this offseason, we're going to continue to talk about and really start to get into detail about what needs to change. Don't know what the schedule looks like. I think probably going to do some more individual videos about, end of season reviews and that kind of thing, and kind of just chill here at the end of the season. And I'm sure at the moment a lot of Colts fans just trying to get this end of season content. I'm a lot like you guys, trying to suck in a lot of this end of season content here, and hey, what's happening here at the end of the season? What's it look like going into the future? And that continues with again, Chris Ballard having his press conference Wednesday, and Wednesday evening we'll talk about that. I have to do my day job, but Wednesday evening we'll be able to talk about that, and going to continue to find content. I'm going to continue to look for your guys' opinions and your guys' feedback in the comments of the videos. Just make sure to always hit that like button. Right? If you're enjoying the content, hitting that like button is a huge thing for me, so that I can see what you guys are reacting to and what you guys enjoy. Being in the comment section so that I know what you guys are thinking and getting the pulse of Colts Nation, and you guys showing up. I appreciate you guys. Appreciate the time that you guys put in to this channel as well. And going to work on finding things that I can do with you guys, and finding ways to try to reward the community here. Right, we're about to hit 2,000 subscribers, and life is what life is. Haven't been able to do a giveaway in a long time, but I want to, and want to do more with you guys through this off season. So hope you guys stick around, man. I'm gonna be here through the off season. If Lion Syndicate, Derek, if you hear this, brother, just know I ain't going anywhere. I got a community that I'm building. I appreciate you guys for coming by. I appreciate you guys for sticking around. We've been chilling here with 40 plus for most of the stream. So appreciate you guys coming in. Appreciate you guys having this conversation with me. Of course, again, Chris Ballard coming back, not the ideal situation. But we're going to move forward, and we're going to talk about what needs to happen. If there are any news updates, I'm going to get any information to you guys. As always, I'm getting what I can to you guys as soon as I possibly can. I have a day job that I have to continue to do, but I'm going to get you guys updates as soon as I possibly can. Hopefully, hey, that Gus Bradley, wait. Like, as we're sitting here, Gus has been fired. As we're sitting here, Gus, we're just about to end it. Gus is fired. We did it, everybody. We made it. We made it. Gus is fired. Gus Bradley out as Colts defensive coordinator. Now it's time to get in here. Let's go, Robert Saleh as Colts defensive coordinator. Yes. Man, I'm glad I didn't end it yet. Right as we're about to end the stream, Gus Bradley, the news breaks. I thought Bruce was just saying that to say it. And then as soon as I look down at my phone, I see it, that we finally did it. We finally got rid of Gus Bradley. Oh, my goodness. Let's go, man. Let's go. Hey. Yeah, we twerking over here, dog. Let's go. Gus Bradley out, baby. Gus Bradley out. Yeah. All right. I mean, listen, this is a guy's livelihood, but he's coached in the NFL forever. He's made millions of dollars. Gus Bradley's fine, brother. Gus Bradley's going to be just fine in life. Go. He should probably retire. Just retire, brother. Go enjoy life with your beautiful family. He's a great guy. Don't get me wrong, great guy. But hey, brother, kick rocks. Let's go, man. We were here for it. Shout out, we were here. The day that Gus Bradley finally got fired, we were here. Options at DC. Right now, Robert Saleh comes to mind. I'm sure he's going to be looking for a head coaching role as well, so we'll see what happens there. I honestly have to go through and do my research. I don't know a whole lot more. Because I'm pretty dead set on Robert Saleh, you know. Yeah, hashtag we were here, bro. We were here when it went down. It finally happened. Good, man. Good. We need somebody that's going to play the best players. You can't draft Latu at 15 and play him 51% of snaps. Come on, man. All right. It's a good day. They kept Ballard, but we got rid of Bradley. All right. We're one step closer. And I assume this is like DeForest Buckner, some of the veterans on the defense that are like, hey, man, like, we got to do something different, right? You lead the league in snaps year after year. Football gods are listening, yeah. Yeah, facts, man. Football gods paying attention, man. We prayed to him just a little while ago, and they came through in the clutch. Feels good, I'm not going to lie. Feels pretty good. I know that's probably wrong. I know me feeling so good about that is probably wrong as a human, but it is what it is. It hurt. It hurt to watch that defense throughout the season, man. So, going to have a new look to the defense next year. It'll be interesting to see who we decide to bring in. I'll start to do the research because obviously after the divisional round is when new coaches can begin to be hired. So we will definitely look into who the new defensive coordinator could be. Of course, again, Robert Saleh, at least for me at the moment, leading candidate. He's going to want a head coaching job, I'm sure, and probably look into doing that. But we'll see what happens. Man. Just, man, again, right here before we end it, Gus Bradley out as Colts coach. I know there are probably some people coming in right here at the end. Gus Bradley out as defensive coordinator. Day after it was announced that the Colts are going to keep Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen. Looks like the defensive staff is going to get an overhaul. Yeah. Be interesting to see what happens, man. A lot of changes coming for the Colts. A lot of changes coming again. A lot of content coming. With all the changes, there is more content coming, okay? So again, make sure hit that like button, man. If you enjoy, imagine Saleh and Steichen, exactly. Assistant head coach, defensive coordinator, them two working together, I think could be really good. Could be really, really good. We're going to have more content coming. Make sure if you enjoy content that's coming out, hit that like button. One of the healthiest things for the YouTube channel, one of the best things for the algorithm. Hit that YouTube channel as we continue to build. We're so close to 2,000. Actually, I haven't looked since I started. We might be there. I don't know. But we're so close to 2,000. All right. And appreciate you guys. Appreciate you guys for coming around. Make sure you're subscribed, have notifications on. Gonna have plenty more content coming. And gonna real quick make a separate little video real quick on the breaking news of Gus Bradley being out as Colts defensive coordinator. But again, appreciate you guys. I love you guys for coming by, hanging with me throughout the season. Hope you guys come through, hang with me through this off season. I know there's going to be some dead periods, but there's a lot for us to figure out this off season, man. So appreciate you guys. Come hang out with me. Keep tuning into the channel. And, I think I've said all that needs to be said. And with that said, as always, take care of yourself.